Alrighty, welcome along everyone. Congratulations, Jess. I know the conditions didn't go your way at the Otago Half Marathon Champs, but you still finished second despite those conditions. And also, I'll take this opportunity to wish Tanya all the best over in Australia for the age group World Triathlon Champs. As promised, Jade is now doing her third presentation in her sequence, looking at sports supplementation and how to dial in that sports nutrition and put that icing on that cake that is sports nutrition. So, without further ado, I'll hand over to Jade. And Jade is a registered nutritionist, Jade Winter Nutrition. You can find her on Facebook, and if you also Google, you'll find her nice and easily. In the notes down below, I will put a link to her website. Now, Jade is a registered nutritionist, and she's got a range of qualifications, a master's degree included in that, and she's a wealth of knowledge. Now, she's not just an academic, as with the previous presentations she's done for the team. She has a wealth of experience in the competitive side of things as well, both at the sharper end of the age group representation in New Zealand and also, is it fairer to say, the less competitive side of things and focusing on the coast to coast as a recreational athlete, Jade?
I don't know that you could ever I don't know that you yes in terms of result, but you know, you've always got that little mind, that really competitive drive. Nothing thrills me more than kicking Brendan's ass, putting up, you know.
Anyway, without further ado, I'll hand it over to you
Anyway,
and let
carry
you
on.
carry on.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Let me just share my screen. All right, can everybody see that okay? Cool. Cool. Kia ora, Koto. Welcome back for our third presentation. I think it's been a wee period of time since our last one, so hopefully that means everybody's had lots of time to work on the first two steps. That is performance nutrition. Tonight, as promised, we are talking race nutrition, so planning your race day, and then a little bit into the supplement and sports foods. As I'm sure you are well aware, um, supplements and sports foods are a massive topic that you could probably talk for 6 hours on in any given day. So I'm going to give a good overview. Got some products that are well known to the New Zealand and Oceania market to talk about, and what they might be useful for and what they might be a complete waste of your money for, and some of it might surprise you. And then we can go through some questions at the end. Just a wee recap. So we are now up the top, like Ray said, doing icing on the cake, so to speak. So we've nailed the basics. We're doing that top five, which were these five things. And then we are jumping into our fueling. So we are fueling prior to training to get the most out of our training. We're getting through that recovery. We're training with our race nutrition, ideally. So you want to have a bit of a plan. You want to be using those products during training, which we'll talk about. And you'll be well aware of and looking out for those red flags that we did discuss in that session as well. So we're nailing those two things. Then we get to race day and we start thinking about race nutrition. I just want to really emphasize, because I did see an athlete a couple of weeks ago that is stepping in, she is stepping into the high performance space in a completely different sport to this, to these. And we found ourselves forced into talking sort of tournament type nutrition. So again, very different, multiple games a day. But unfortunately, that person, we didn't have time to do these first two steps. Yeah. So there was a lot of band-aids happening. And usually when athletes come to see me, a month before their race or, even 6 weeks before their race, we're putting a lot of band-aids on before we're getting to the race nutrition, and we're just kind of doing what we can with what we've got at that point. So really want to emphasize those first two steps. Yes, they're boring, but if we can be really consistent about them, it means that come race nutrition, you can have one session with me instead of six. And we're not sending you to physios, sports doctors, all of that kind of thing at the same time. So I'm sure many of you have seen lots of these products, and if you have worked with me individually, you would have seen little photos of all these things as well, or many of these things. There's a good mix on here of all the different things, or a handful of the different products and foods that you might use to fuel your training or your racing, right from your typical banana or white bread jam sandwich, right through to your Mortein gel or Morton gels, not Mortein, that's fly spray, I think. Morton gels and your tailwind type products that you're sort of paying a bit more for. So there's a big range there, and I guess what I really want to drive home to you tonight is that those sort of pricier, pointy-ended products that are available for fueling your sport have benefits in the sense that they are concentrated products. So, that they do have their use actually if we're trying to get large amount of carbohydrates in a short space of time. Then actually having a 30-gram gel in one hit is going to be a lot easier for you than having two pieces of bread and a tablespoon of jam. Yeah. So there are pros and cons to all these things. Of course, the other thing that we will talk about is flavor fatigue. So that's where like the crackers, the pretzels, the chips at the Ironman aid stations and those sorts of things come in, because sometimes, I mean, I'm a savory girl at heart anyway, but sometimes you just don't want something else that's really sweet. So there's a wide range of things that we can use, and I encourage you to think strategically about what that might look like for you in racing, whatever your racing calendar looks like. So I'm really sorry, this is quite a wordy slide. So I will just talk through it. I won't read off it, but I'll just talk through it. So, like in terms of planning your race nutrition, you really want to be able to think about like what's on course, first of all. Yeah, so some things aren't going to have anything on course. Like I've certainly done events in the past that have had absolutely nothing. So in 2018, Steph and I did Brecca, and literally there was virtually nothing. In fact, I think there was like some halftime oranges at one point, but that was about it. Like there was just nothing on that course. So thinking about most courses do have something. What's available on your A race course? So if you're doing Ironman New Zealand or Challenge Wanaka, what's there? Is it pure? Is it radix? Is it goo? What is it? Can you tolerate it? So actually, like, get yourself some, probably not like a 30 box to start with, but get yourself a wee sachet or something. One, do you like the taste of it? Because if you don't like the taste of it, you're not going to consume it when you're hurting. And two, can you tolerate it? Like, does it instantly give you the shits, basically? Or does it instantly make you feel absolutely horrendous and you're just not going to have it? And then thinking about like, are there, if you can't tolerate the sports nutrition product, which is quite common. So, there are a few brands out there, which I'm not going to name, that very few of the people I've worked with in the past will tolerate. And then there are other brands that are a lot more friendly that usually we can train your gut. Pure is one of those. Normally, I can get athletes to I'm not affiliated with Pure at all, but normally nine times out of 10, I can get athletes to tolerate pure with some training. But there are some that are just, we're never going to go anywhere with, and we'll talk about why really soon, and what to look for. If you can't tolerate it, can you tolerate other things at the aid station? So are there bananas? Is there watermelon? Is there oranges, lollies? Like, is there something else that you could use? And then thinking like, what are your estimated times? Yeah, so we always think about, um, if you're aiming for, say, a 12-hour Ironman all up, we're always going to tack on a buffer. Hopefully you'll go 11:30, but we tack on in case something happens. Um, and we sort of make sure that we have enough food in our special needs bags or our run vest or our fuel belt or our tri-suit or whatever our medium is for carrying fuel, we have enough. And depending on the athlete, depending on how they carry their fuel, sometimes I have people doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things with, carrying salt capsules and all those kinds of things. Very individualized. So beyond the scope of this talk tonight. And then we tailor it to the leg or discipline. So cycling nutrition, like what I get you to do or what I suggest you do on a bike is going to be very different to running. What I suggest you do in a 4-hour open water swim is going to be very different to what I suggest you do on a bike. So thinking about like realistically, how hard are you likely to be working? And then we go into what's the course like and where are the hot spots, like how, you know, is there a part of the course where there's heaps of hills and therefore we actually need you to be having one of these and not a jam sandwich. Now you can see it. So thinking strategically about that, looking at course profiles. What will you probably be feeling like if it's the heat of the day and you're 140 k's into an Ironman ride, possibly riding your way back from Reparoa into a headwind? You're probably gonna be potentially, hopefully, you're feeling good, but we want to make life as easy for you as we can at that point. So thinking about, what's the climate usually like? Again, it's New Zealand, who knows? It could be a cyclone or it could be 30 degrees. Just having a bit of an idea. I've watched a couple of really sad clips about a woman in Kona today, and being pulled out of that race due to what looked like heat stress. I can tell you right now that we put a lot down to temperature and we put a lot down to heat. A lot of the time, I'm sure these athletes are thinking of this, or their teams will be thinking of this. But what we don't think about is how our fuel is actually able to be metabolized when our body is under stress. I'm sure these athletes would have been all over that, but for the recreational or non-professional, I should say, athlete that doesn't have a great big team around them, it's something that we often don't think about. Yeah. So if it is a really hot day, if it's actually a really cold day, then the way we use nutrition is going to be very different to if it's a lovely 15 degrees still day, stable day. So thinking about that and how we're going to store it, like no point putting nutrition in a pocket that you can't reach easily. And that you're going to give yourself cramp trying to reach into your tri-suit pocket or something, or putting your nutrition in your bike saddlebag or something. I know that sounds stupid, but people do these things, and then wonder why they can't grab their nutrition. Another thing is, thinking about like how you're going to carry your food. So I learned a really hard lesson on a 3-hour paddle a few weeks ago. I put being celiac, I can't just eat any old bar. and I had a bar in a like snap blocky bag. Snap block bags, for the record, are actually not that watertight. You got to work really hard to make those things watertight. And I had to bite a hole in the end of my bag and have mushed up gooey, what looked like one of Jack's nappies, muesli bar. So seriously, disgusting. Think about like how are you going to transport your food or your electrolyte powder. Again, it will turn into electrolyte on your body with mixed with your sweat if you don't have it. And this is where, sorry about the environment, but those single serve sachets are awesome. So, race nutrition for an Ironman might look like. So, I'm not even talking about breakfast here because we would have nailed our breakfast before. 15 minutes prior to the start, we might smash a gel. Then we're going to swim. Then we've got transition. Transition's a really good place to smash a bobby banana or something as you're running out with your bike. Um, Bike ride per hour, again, I've had athletes tolerate 40 grams an hour, I've had athletes tolerate 80. So, really depends. It's finding your upper ceiling on the bike because this is really where we're going to get the most fuel into you. Um, Fluid, again, individual, I always say around 500 mils. That could be anything from 350 to 750, depending on the athlete. And then I've just given you an example of how you might tailor that. So, first couple of, we're alternating our electrolytes with water. I always use that as an example because personally, I can't stand just drinking electrolyte. I have to have a little bit of water there. In this case, though, if you're one of those athletes that likes to have plain water as well as electrolytes, probably, and you're working for over sort of 3 hours, probably need to add some salt caps in there. So you can see in hour 4, I've added some salt caps in, and depending on the athlete, I'd probably add more in at the end of the bike. And so you can see I've really mixed it up there. So we've got 1 square meal bars, we've got bananas, we've got pretzels, we've got I think we do have a gel in there. Hour 6, so you're really just tuning into how you're feeling because we really want you in a good position without gut distress coming off that bike. And then run. We typically will tolerate far less running than we do cycling, which is why cycling is just so we try and load you as much as we can in that time. So many athletes running, like if I can get an Ironman athlete consuming 40 grams an hour continuously on the run, we've won the lottery. And we do that typically with gels, or we do that with lollies, usually. I've got here Coca-Cola or Red Bull. Who likes Coca-Cola or Red Bull in events? Put your hand up. I definitely do. Oh, yeah, there we go, Ray. So, Coca-Cola is like the best thing ever in terms of a really fast sugar hit. But what it does, or what it is, it's hypertonic, which means that, you might have heard like Powerade, isotonic sports drink, blah, blah, blah. And then we have water, which is hypotonic. So it's got, less sodium in it, or less sodium than what your blood has in it per mil. And then we have hypertonic, which is like your Coca-Cola, your Red Bull, and some of the brands of sports drinks if you make them to instruction. Really good way to pull a whole lot of water into your intestine and feel really hideous really quickly. So I always say to athletes, like, stay away from Coke. You see people, the worst thing ever is like an Ironman and people being like, Coke, Coke, in their first lap, and you're like, no, like, no, don't do that. Like, don't do that to yourself. You're better to walk. And that is the reason. Like, it's just a really fast road to basically feel absolutely horrendous really quickly. Not to mention the caffeine. Yeah, so caffeine is something I'll talk about soon, and cover off quite briefly. But at that stage in the race, typically we see a very unhelpful rise in heart rate, and we see a very unhelpful rise in some of our stress hormones when we start loading with caffeine at a late stage of a race. Pre-race, carb loading. Carb loading is an interesting one. There's been a lot of mixed evidence on it, but most of all, the evidence is still really good. That doesn't mean to say that you should go out and eat as much as you can the day before a race. Yeah. So for every 1 gram of carbohydrate you consume, you store 2 to 3 grams of water, which is really normal. If you go out and slam 1,000 grams of carbohydrate the day before, or over 1,000 grams of carbohydrate the day before, and every other day that week, you're going to be feeling pretty sorry for yourself. Yeah. So the evidence says 8 to 12 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. Normally, I'd definitely go for the lower of that, so 8 maximum. But we don't want to just do it for the day. We don't want to, or the day before, and we don't want to just do it for the week. We want to do it for 2 to 3 days. Yeah. So if your race is on Saturday, start carving up on like Wednesday. And by carving up, we are simply adding an extra serving of carbohydrates per meal. So what that might look like is, say you're having a sushi bowl for dinner, with rice and chicken and salad. You might just add another half cup of rice. Yeah, another half cup of cooked rice. Or you might be having a eggs on toast for lunch. And with that, you might add a piece of fruit or a fruit smoothie or a glass of orange juice or something like that. So carbs doesn't have to be pasta, doesn't have to be big loaves of bread or anything like that. It can simply be electrolyte drinks, smoothies, sorbet, So let's think about bang for buck in terms of fluid, getting fluids in. So that's where like gelato, orange juice, electrolytes, although you don't want to get too sick of those, can help. And just thinking also about reducing your fiber, because the last thing you want is to increase your bowel frequency in the lead up to race day. So really thinking like that's where, again, benefits to orange juice, things like rice. You can do like waffles, like what a waffle with jam is like an awesome way of increasing your carbs, having that as a snack. So just thinking about ways to do that without bulking, adding the bulk to your intestine as well. And familiar foods, I shouldn't have to say that, but like now's not the time to go and try the street food from the alleyway, or a new cocktail at the bar or something. Now is the time to be eating things, as boring as it is, that how you're going to respond to them. And then after the race, you can go down the alleyway and eat the street food. But prior to that, we are all about boring, what you eat at home. And that may mean, we'll talk about this in a minute, making sure you've got accommodation with facilities to be able to do that. A little bit on training the gut. So I hear a lot of, and to be honest, I've been this way as well. I hear a lot of, no, my gut can't tolerate that, I can't do that, blah, blah, blah. Your gut is a muscle, if we think of it as a muscle, and you have to train it. Yeah. So we expect to be uncomfortable. Like in those, I see those velocity sessions come up and, like you expect a bit of discomfort when you're training. Yeah. You're not always going to be like loving life and like really, thrilled about whatever it is you're doing. And as horrible as it sounds, we actually expect that when we're training the gut as well. So that's why it's important to start really early. We can expect some discomfort, and that's actually really normal. Yeah, so there's a really wide variant of normal here. And this is why it's so important to not leave it to the last month prior to your event to be testing things. It means regular exposure to nutrition during training. So not just deciding, yeah, prior to your event, oh yeah, it'd be a good idea to eat during that marathon. Or it'd be a good idea to take something on board. Maybe I should try something. Start early and see how you go. Really normal to expect some discomfort. What isn't normal is like crippling pain, 700 trips to the toilet. Like there are variants of normal. We want to stay away from straight fructose, and I'm going to go into this more in a minute, or galactose. Yeah. So these guys are really slow to oxidize, and they have the same effect as hypertonic drinks in the sense that they are really slow for us to actually utilize and use as energy. They also just pull a shitload of water into their intestinal wall in the process. Yeah. So when they're trying to oxidize, they pull that fluid in. It honestly has a massive impact. So it's not that we want to stay away from fructose or galactose, sorry, but we want them to be combined with something like sucrose, glucose, maltodextrin, and again, I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, or starch. Electrolytes. So I should have put sodium there. Oh yeah, I did. Yeah. So anywhere between 300 and 600 milligrams of sodium per hour. Not many people need much more than that, although some do. And less than 300 will put you at risk of hyponatremia. So we really want to be hitting somewhere in there. Most sports drinks have that much if you're having a serving an hour. If you are using the likes of gels or anything like that, they will not be a main source of, but will contribute to that sodium. And of course, for those really, for those that do need extra sodium, there are salt caps on the market, and I do frequently recommend these to athletes, particularly really heavy sweaters, athletes who like to drink water. And those who are expected to be out on course for over 6 hours, typically. Yeah. So a little bit about the different types of carbs. And this is I'm predominantly using sports products here to use as examples because typically that is what gets us into the most trouble, I find. So I'm just moving. Oh yeah, perfect. So in terms of like rapid absorption, so if we think about, like yeah, you're in a space where you really want some rapid absorption. We're looking for the likes of glucose and sucrose, which are typically our table sugars. Yeah, so that's where like your cane sugar, your like the likes of honey, although there is a bit of fructose there as well. Your maple syrup, those sorts of things. But typically on packaging, it will look like cane sugar, invert sugar, sugar syrup, glucose syrup, or they'll just use sucrose. Maltodextrin or cluster dextrin is a fairly tasteless product. So I do like the use of maltodextrin in products, particularly for athletes likely to get for flavor fatigue or savory athletes, athletes that actually like savory food more. Soluble starches, so they have a less of a sweet taste. The likes of like we talked about before, the fructose, the galactose, they are a slower absorbing carbohydrate that is used. Combined, again, totally cool. If they're not combined, absolutely hopeless and quite dangerous, really. So if we look at these products, I haven't got many on there because if I did start a spreadsheet at one point, and then my chaotic filing system has lost it, so I'll have to find it. But we've sort of got the likes of pure hydration, which sucrose and glucose is what they use. So really rapidly absorbed and quite a sweet product. Around about $3 per 750. And I just want to say, like, Pure and Peak Fuel are owned by the same people. They're the same products with the same makeup, basically. Um, they've just got different branding, different flavors. But from a food science and nutrition perspective, they're the same. So if you can tolerate the Peak Fuel flavors, then you're going to save yourself a lot of money. If you're fussy like me, particularly with gels, and you like the fluid gels with a bit of maltodextrin in them to make them less sweet, then you're stuck with Pure, sorry. Um, and that, but yeah, so then we have like the Pure Race Fuel, which is the much higher carbohydrate. And the reason for that is because they use cluster dextrin, which is a very new, quite an advanced way of saying maltodextrin, but with more molecules attached to it, to make it slightly more rapidly absorbing with the fructose in there as well. Much higher sodium product, so you save a bit of money there because if you're a heavy sweater, you're going to use salt capsules. And also, like, it's really important to note that although it does look like an extremely expensive product, you're getting 3 times the amount of carbs. So it's, you've got to take that into account. Many of my elite athletes that I work with use race fuel because they're not really eating, they're just fueling with liquid. The likes of Hawley's Replace is just a real solid product, to be honest. Like, if you like it and you can tolerate it, go figure. Like, get into it. It's cheap. It's maltodextrin, glucose, fructose, perfect combination. Might need to add some more salt to it, but no complaints from me. Tailwind is pretty similar in makeup, usually, to your Pure. So go figure. Some of the flavors might be better or different, but yeah, pretty different. Pretty much the same from a nutrition perspective. There are some products out there, and I guess this would be where it's important to look at the ingredients on the back. So if you see on the ingredient list the likes of date syrup, if you see fruit juice, fruit syrup, date paste, apricot paste, anything like that, you can assume that that product is going to be high in fructose. So the likes of, an M's Power Bar or M's Power Cookie, I just dug that out before of my paddling box. Good product because it is gluten-free for me, so I don't have much choice, and quite high calories, quite high carbs, really high in fructose. So personally, Again, everyone's different, but personally, I certainly wouldn't be using it if I had to run, because it wouldn't be very comfortable for me. Pedaling, it's fine, but just thinking about that and knowing your own tolerance, again, practicing these things and seeing how you feel. If you have any type of IBS, or like um, history of stress-induced diarrhea, then fructose is something to stay well away from on its own or in large amounts. This one's just a really good slide for showing you actually there are really cheap ways to fuel your adventures, on top of using some of the more specialized products. So yeah, the likes of your baby food pouches, your jam sandwiches, your dried mango, obviously in small amounts, and if you can tolerate it, um, your bliss balls, those sorts of things, in combination with your sports nutrition products. It's worth noting, like I've seen people take, um, you know, cold roast kumara or potato out there with them. I've seen Vegemite sandwiches. I've seen, um, yeah, a really wide range of food. So think about like what is it you feel like, and give it a go. You might be surprised. Um, I've seen a lot go wrong, not on the day, not training, but traveling to an event, um, not having appropriate facilities or planning around your facilities, and pasta parties. I've seen some real disasters with like pre-event feeds and meats. Um, One really memorable one actually was a couple of years ago at I had an athlete doing an overseas event, and unfortunately there was a food poisoning issue at the pasta party, and it wiped out a lot of people. So just I always say anyone that works with me will know, don't go to the well, go to them, but don't eat at them. Have a drink or something, and just play it real safe, eh? Because if you think like you're in a marquee, I'm thinking about the Challenge Wanaka one I went 2 years ago. You're in a marquee, Bain Marie's of food, hundreds of people. Like it's, I don't know. There's a bit of risk there. So just being careful. Um, Event Expo is not time to get a new race nutrition plan, analyze someone else's hydration system, or decide to do what everybody else is doing. So if you get cold feet and think, oh, I shouldn't really be taking that roast meal out on my bike that I've trained with for the last 6 months, I should really take this new system or new race food. Please don't just take your roast meal or your meat sandwich or whatever it is. Yeah. So yeah, don't get hyped up into that. Buy new products by all means, but don't use them on race day. Traveling, thinking about like what can I take with me in the car, plane, train, whatever, however you're getting there, bus. Um, are we going to stop on the way? A lot of dehydration happens when you're traveling. If you're in an air-conditioned plane, whatever, you're getting lots of coffees on the way, having a great time, and then you realize you haven't drank anything all day. And planning, paying the extra $20 or $30 for a kitchen in your unit at the motel or whatever. If you're stuck just thinking like, okay, what can I do with this? Is there a toaster available, or can I do a chiller bag? Is there fridge facilities? I don't know. There hasn't been a situation yet where we haven't been able to come up with a plan. So don't panic too much, but think about that. Like is it worth looking elsewhere for my accommodation so that I've got what I need to be able to prepare the food that I need. Cool. So supplements. Sorry, I don't know what that S is doing down there, but it's decided to run away on me. So we've got on one side like the toilet, so expensive wheeze or poos, basically. A lot of supplements are a lot of money, like multi-billion dollar industry in New Zealand, and doping. So not many of us are subject to testing, although I don't know actually, so maybe we are. But it's something that I talk to all of my athletes about because we all want clean sport, we all want safe sport, and the reality is these days is that not all supplements are safe. There are safe brands, there are batch tested products, but there is stuff hiding in supplements, and we need to be really careful. There isn't enough regulation in the supplement industry, and there's none in the sports food industry. So we just need to be really careful. You're responsible for what you take and what you put in your body, so just being really mindful of that. The good side of supplements is that if you need them, they can be really therapeutic and performance enhancing. It's just working out what you need and tailoring whatever you're taking to be safe, cost effective. You know, the number of people that spend $80 on vitamin D supplements that could be spending $11.99 at the chemist warehouse always boggles me. Yeah. But equally, spending lots of money, or more money, I should say, on the likes of a decent iron supplement, if you can't tolerate the prescribed one, um, is worth its weight in gold. So it's working out what's worth spending your money on and what's not worth spending your money on. Just going to talk about a few supplements. There's one on here that I didn't pop in there, but Taylor did ask me about, so I will talk a little bit about that. I wasn't going to talk about it because you're all endurance athletes, but I will mention it because it was asked about. So collagen, there's a lot of hype around collagen. And I just want to say it's not a replacement for protein powder. It doesn't have all of the amino acids. And to get um, protein synthesis happening or muscle growth happening, we need all of the essential amino acids to be there. So it can contribute to that situation, but it can't be a replacement. Um, there is evidence, though, around acute tendon and ligament healing. There's also some evidence around gut and intestinal lining stuff. So, not for just everyone, but if you do have a gut issue, then sometimes collagen is useful. Sleep and skin elasticity, I would say weak to moderate evidence, but there is a little bit. But predominantly tendon and ligament health. So if you've got an acute injury, collagen can be really useful alongside vitamin C prior to your rehabilitation or stretching regime. And for collagen, we're really looking at a product such as Nothing Naughty. Although don't buy the one with vitamin C and mix it with milk. I can assure you that ascorbic acid with milk doesn't go very well. So typically I'd just get the plain old collagen. Personally, I have started mixing it into my coffee to get a bit more protein. And I don't even know it's there. And then vitamin C from food, and we're good. So again, utilizing food and supplements is what we want to be doing. Vitamin D we've talked about, but everyone should be taking vitamin D, hopefully. Um, we accept 50 nanomoles per litre. We really want to be around that sort of 100 mark to be getting the full effects of vitamin D. Iron. So most menstruating childbearing age women are at risk. Some of us are not if we have iron overload, but many of us are at risk of iron deficiency, particularly endurance athletes as well. So there's far more risk of loss there. So the ferritin cutoff these days, like in your GP practice, is 15 to 20. Most sports physicians now are looking for 50 at least. I personally won't let someone start an event without a heavy disclaimer if they're under 30, and advocate frequently for iron infusions for people that aren't tolerating oral supplements, or are and still have a ferritin of under 30. So we're aiming for that 40 to 50 mark. Most men get there, most postmenopausal women get there. Some don't, depending, but most do. Menstruating women really mostly don't, particularly endurance athletes, don't have a shit show. It's very, very rare that I see a menstruating female or a pregnant female at 50 without supplementation, or iron overload. So worth getting checked for everybody. Next time you're at the doctor's, get your iron checked. Ferritin is your stored iron, and that's, we want to look at everything, but ferritin is your main one.
Just quickly, Jade, you mentioned menstruating females. Are you meaning females of an age where they should be menstruating? Does that also apply to females with secondary amenorrhea?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. Secondary amenorrhea, obviously you don't have that loss happening, but you, particularly for endurance athletes, would have losses from the likes of sweat losses, foot strike. And again, like there's some really good evidence that anybody that does have secondary amenorrhea, low energy availability, or RED-S, also has low iron, unless they've got iron overload. Yeah, the two go hand in hand. So yeah, aiming for that ferritin of 50, at least 30. If you're 15, then your doctor needs to prescribe you supplements at least. Yeah. But then I would go back to that secondary amenorrhea. So I've seen a lot of it lately, and that we would hope that there would be an active plan in place to restore those menses as well, as rapidly as we can.
Just
Magnesium's
before
a
you move
really
on, Jade,
big one.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Just before you move on, I think Stu, you had a question, did you?
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look. So Jade, when you say the ferritin, the numbers you've got, because the
yeah,
numbers I get are between 20 and 400. Am I looking at the transferrin
yeah.
or the percent of saturation?
Nah, you're looking at ferritin. So
Okay.
ferritin is your iron stores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because obviously the way these guys do theirs, it says it should be between 20 and 400, and I was at 109.
A ferritin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And what was
And
yours?
then, 109. But then when it talks about iron, it's between 10 and 30.
Yeah. So serum iron is between the reference range is 10 and 30, and ferritin 20 and 400 is interesting, but yeah, I mean 20 would be the low cutoff. And 400, I would hope that you weren't around 400, or there'd need to be some other things. But yeah, the other thing I guess to say with iron and testing iron is that it's an acute phase reactant, which means that, sorry, that was a bit scientific, wasn't it, for a Sunday night? What that means is basically that you want to not have had a really high intensity training session in the 24 hours prior to testing. prior to your blood test. So if you know, like, you're going to the doctors and you're going to get a blood test, like, really try your best, at least on that day or like the 12 to 24 hours prior, not to be like hanging your ring out for a 2 hour session, because that will alter your ferritin reading and it will alter your inflammatory marker reading. However, in all that, I would never expect any of you to be reading your own blood tests. So yeah, you should be looking for a ferritin of over 30 at least, hopefully closer to 50. Beyond that, if you've got concerns, you should be talking to a clinician to get some advice. Magnesium is a super popular supplement. It's also, as I found last week with someone, the reason for some severe gastrointestinal distress. So if you're prone to a bit of like constipation from time to time and you need a laxative, buy magnesium oxide or a cheap magnesium supplement. Yeah. So cheap magnesium supplements are typically magnesium oxide and they will make you go to the toilet through the eye of a needle. So this person was like, I've got IBS, there's something like seriously wrong with my tummy. Right, what supplements do you take? Magnesium oxide. Right, stop taking that. Yeah, so like if you're doing, to put it in perspective, if you're doing bowel prep for a colonoscopy, they're giving you magnesium oxide. Yeah, like they're giving you high dose magnesium oxide. So if you buy that, usually it's like your supermarket brand magnesium. Yeah, you're basically giving yourself like a lower version of colonoscopy bowel prep. So get some good quality magnesium so you don't give yourself any more reason to use an event portaloos than you already need. Having said that, very important mineral. Sleep, nervous system, musculoskeletal health, I'm not going to go into all of that. Really good for people that finding it hard to sleep, exercising more than an hour intensely daily, painful menstruation, perimenopausal, or yeah, late stage pregnancy, which I don't think we have in this room. We should be considering magnesium. We are looking for magnesium glycinate, ideally. You can have a bit of a combo depending on your budget, but magnesium glycinate is the best in my opinion. And for a tablet, you're looking at Be Pure. And for a powder, you're looking at Ethical Nutrients Mega Magnesium. Although I do believe that someone else, I saw something the other day, and another over-the-counter brand has bought one out. So I'll have a look into that for you. But they're the two products I'd recommend over the counter for magnesium. Oh, the next one I was going to talk about that I haven't put on here was creatine, and Taylor asked me about that. It's a hot topic at the moment. I'll make creatine. I wasn't going to talk about it because it's not one I typically recommend for endurance athletes. I definitely do for my strength and power athletes, or if you're a pro, or you think you're going to be doing like a really explosive effort at the end of your race. Then creatine might be helpful. Or if you are in the phase of training, your strength or power phase of training, then creatine might be helpful. Creatine does have some cautions with it though. Not many cautions, but some cautions. So anyone with a mood disorder or a what am I trying to use? What am I trying to find the word? Anyone with a mood disorder or a heart arrhythmia or heart issue should not be taking creatine without talking to someone first. Um, Risks are super rare, but I don't want to be not telling you that. So talk to someone first, and get that cleared. Um, the other one to expect with creatine is that it can be really good for brain health. It's also really good for memory and cognition, particularly for perimenopausal athletes. You can expect a little bit of weight gain with it, which will stabilize. So you can expect sort of 500 grams to 2 kilograms. I've never actually seen anyone gain anything spectacular with it, but that is what we expect from a biological perspective. Yeah. So yes and no. Like if you think you're going to be using like a hell of a lot of power or you're doing lots of weights, if you're doing power or plyometrics, then absolutely creatine's worth talking about. If you have like mild to moderate depression, or have had a traumatic brain injury or acute traumatic brain injury, absolutely. Anything beyond that, though, in terms of like a mood disorder, anything cardiac or heart related, then talk to someone prior to taking. Oh yeah, that brings me to the end, but I am here obviously for questions as well. I do have some packages available for any of you. Again, the zeros have gone walkabouts. For any of you that do need or want some more support, I do encourage you to think about your race nutrition early. And I also encourage you to think about your, those first two platforms, I guess, on the pyramid or first two foundations, in the sense that like your cake toppings are going to be real shit if your foundation and icing it melts it away or collapses. So just think about it from a cake perspective, and how you can support yourself. And if you have any questions about these packages or want to book in, then feel free to email me and I'll pop my email up on the page. And I will hand it over for questions.
So as we normally do, we'll just move through the room. Stu, you logged in nice and early, so you can be the first cab off the rank if you've got any questions around the topic for Jade or generalized nutrition questions for Jade.
No, I'm all good.
Jason, you're also logged in reasonably early tonight. No. Jess? Jess seems to have frozen. We'll come back to her. I can see Tanya moving.
I do
Oh
have
no,
one quick
there we
question.
go.
Sorry, that's my bad, my horrible Wi-Fi. Oh,
Where you go, Jess?
I was gonna say is when I'm racing, I get really bad flavor fatigue, even just in my half marathons with my gels, and I think it is just the sweetness. So I try to like change the flavors, but it's still really gets to me at the end, like any way around it.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, you did freeze a little bit there. But I think I got the gist. So bit of flavor fatigue during your half marathons, and you try and change up the flavors, but it still gets you a bit at the end. Is that the general gist? Yeah, yeah. Cool. So for an event that distance, like, and you're quite fast, like I imagine you're working at quite a high intensity for that duration. So gels definitely, like if you can tolerate them, then gels are your best bet. I guess I would be thinking about the types of gels you're using. So, sometimes your cheaper gels or your like more mainstream, so like the likes of Goo, Peak Fuel, your supermarket brands are made with sugar and glucose, so they are sweeter, and even fructose, so that they're sweeter, they're cheaper to make, essentially. I would be looking for products that had more maltodextrin in them, to try and take away some of that sweetness. A good product that I'm actually holding here is these Pure Fluid Energy Gels. Have you had those before? Yeah. So this one in particular, this is the orange flavor. So this is like product variation 101 here. Hopefully you can see those. So both of these have 30 grams of carbs in them, but one of them has 5 times the amount of fructose in it. Yeah. Raspberry flavored. Anything raspberry flavored, it's going to have way more fructose, going to be way sweeter. Yeah. So orange, the orange flavored gel has 1.1 grams of fructose, and the rest of it's maltodextrin. So I don't know if you've had the orange one, but it is a lot less sweet than the raspberry and other flavors. The other thing though that could be worth thinking about, can you chew during your half marathons? Yeah. So
A little bit at the start.
yeah, so the likes of like your Precision Nutrition does a 30-gram chew, 30-gram carbohydrate chew that you can get unflavored. So that could be a winner for you. The other thing that you could do, and I'd probably want to talk to you offline about doing this, is getting like 100 ml little squeezy bottle, and you can make your own. And I have had success with this previously, so you're not like my experiment. Other people have fulfilled that role. You can get maltodextrin straight powder. It's got no taste, and you obviously mix it with water. And some athletes will put like half a teaspoon of raro or something in it just to make it taste good. And so you can do that, but you want to try that training first. But that can be a really good way, like rapid absorption. So you're still getting that the same rate of oxidation as your sucrose and glucose, but you're not getting the sweet with it. So a few options. I would try the likes of like your fluid gels and your Mortine and stuff like that first, and then if you don't have success and you want to try the maltodextrin, send me an email. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Or the unflavored race fuel by Pure is another, like that cluster dextrin. And you could probably, you wouldn't need much of that for your half marathon. Yeah. For my half marathon, I'd need a whole tub, but for yours, you'd be good.
Thank you.
No worries.
All right, we'll move on to Tanya. I realise the order's slightly mixed up from the order everyone arrived, but we'll get round to everyone. Tanya, any questions? None from you. As per normal, we'll open things up to generalised questions, whether it's about your training, whether it's for me or a question for Jade. Background to you, Stu. You're good. Jason, Jess, and Tanya. Everyone's good. Hey, I'd like to thank Jade for this series of presentations, not just today's presentation, but the previous two before that. I'll have them linked down below for those that are joining us, having watched this for the first one, particularly the new athletes that have joined the squad and due to time zones or other traveling commitments aren't in a position to join the session live. And I do know that there've been a couple of athletes training during this session as well, so I'm sure they will catch up with it. As well as thanking Jade for her time, I also want to wish Tanya all the best for the age group triathlon world champs this coming week. She's not doing just one event. She's not just doing 2 events. She is Superwoman and doing 3 events. And also, congratulations to Jess on your second place at the Otago Half Marathon Champs and the trying conditions over the weekend. So, well done, everyone. All the best, Tanya. And thank you very much, Jade. Your time is greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Jade.
No worries. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ray.
You're welcome.
See ya.
See you later.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.